Well, hello, that's me again. Today is January 15th. It is Wednesday. It is a hump day. And what you saw in the beginning basically is the summary of all that Biden administration did, not only to the United States, which it drove it pretty much into the ground, but also outside. And when they called Blinken essentially the bloody murderer, that's very true. As I already stated, a large portion of Biden administration and establishment which supported it are downright war criminals. Some of them can easily be prosecuted for their crimes against humanity. So it's nothing really new in all that. But as I already stated, we're looking now at 5 days before Mr. Trump does some kind of the maneuver to completely distance himself from what is happening in Ukraine. And we will start with very interesting thing, which I think so is remarkable. Glenn Diesen obviously is a visible figure in all these geopolitical analytical circles, and his basically tweet 2 days ago, if not yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not insisting that it was yesterday, but it was definitely within last 48 hours, he came up with this very peculiar tweet. As you can see yourself, Glenn, who is definitely one of those better people with, realist of the real realist school, who talks about the fact that Russian forces are only 6.5 kilometers away from the Dnipropetrovsk region, where there are almost no Ukrainian fortifications or industrial zones to be used as defensive lines. NATO should start negotiations with Russia today on European security agreement based on indivisible security. I think that while I understand where Glenn is coming from, and I would want to stress that not everything he says is wrong, I have to say that within the the background of the events of the last week, to put it roughly in terms of time frame, things well, it's a little bit too late. What Glenn talks about is this. Let's start with obviously the number of losses. Yesterday, as you can see yourself, Ukraine continues to launch all those UAVs. This is the only thing they have in their arsenal, so to speak, which can hit once in a while, provide this proverbial leak. Mainly they hit civilian infrastructure and like apartment blocks and things of this nature. And 180 have been launched and 180 have been shut down. And as you can see yourself, we have the military personnel killed and wounded, but mostly killed is above 1 million significantly, and 2,110 Ukrainian personnel have been killed in the last 24 hours. So the slaughter continues, and Mr. Zelensky tries to say that, yeah, we're ready to lower the mobilization age to 18-year-olds, but please give us more weapons. I don't know what kind of weapons the United States can provide, short of the nuclear weapons, that can somehow alter the trajectory of what is happening right now. And we'll talk about this yet, and that will explain why Glenn Diesen's tweet, or X, whatever the hell the thing is called today, looks peculiar, because indivisible security is, how to put it, too late. NATO is not going to be negotiated with. But before I go and explain why it is true, let's take a look at what Glenn means by the 6.5 kilometers from Dnipropetrovsk area. This is the scheme of the things. As you can see yourself, I drew the red line which is, yeah, it's about 6.5 kilometers to the border of the Dnipropetrovsk region. You can see yourself Pokrovsk on the north, and it's being surrounded on, well, now I will explain why it's being surrounded on all sides. And Russians already are fighting in the, well, suburbia in Pokrovsk, because this scheme, as you can see yourself from yesterday. We can go now and to our good friend Marat Khairulin and look at his more detailed map, which appropriately shows us that Russians are already in essentially on the outskirts of Pokrovsk. And if you take a look at the map and the line of the combat contact here, you will see yourself those up to the, from the left side of the map to the upper right corner. You will see yourself those, you know, small circles with the arrows, which are, of course, blocking, essentially blocking strikes or attacks, well, rather not attacks, but, you know, engagements by Russian forces in order to stretch whatever is left in Pokrovsk to, you know, not be able to maneuver with force. So they are tying that, while the main strike, so to speak, as you can see yourself to the left side, is it's kind of, you know, the maroon type place, as you can see yourself, called Zvereva, and this is where Russians, probably main thrust of Russian attack will come through, go, but you know what, it doesn't matter, it's just a matter of time, and, you know, Russians constantly operating within the economy of force mode, then yeah, Pokrovsk is pretty much a done deal. It's just a matter, again, how it will be mopped up. Obviously, the you know, the Ukraine, armed forces of Ukraine will try to, you know, make a last stand, but you know, we know where it is all going. And if you can continue to look at, for example, the area of Velikaya Novoselovka, you can see yourself a lovely cauldron is forming there. And yeah, as you can see yourself, Russians are already advancing there. So all over the place, the line of the combat contact, or front, if you wish, is on the move. And some people say that, yeah, we can go and say that, yeah, I spoke about it once in a while, that it all depends what kind of the present for inauguration of Trump Russians will make. But Russians really, speaking realistically, they don't care about timetables, they don't care about those significant dates to which they have to achieve some kind of objective. No, Russians just do their own deal. And that brings us back to Glenn Diesen's tweet, because while, as I already stated, I do understand where he is coming from, it's too late. It's too late for NATO to really do anything about it, because they are late by about 3 years. And if we understand what is going on, we have to go back to the December 2021, and as many people called it, peremptory, but realistically, well, it was kind of ultimatum, but it is also ultimatum, but in such a way, which is a classic language of Russian diplomacy, that still opening, leaving some opening for United States to save its face, and, you know, to NATO to save its face. They didn't understand what they're dealing with, and, well, which is expected when you look at people like Sullivan or Blinken or Biden for that matter. They are absolute nincompoops. They do not understand first thing about real economy, real industries, about real military, and things like that. And so what I want to concentrate your attention to is that this constant talk about this so-called, you know, that Trump allegedly, you know, says that Russia and the United States are preparing meeting. This is absolutely downright not true. Well, the United States tries to create this, you know, the wave in media that something is, you know, in basically in workings, but reality is much more prosaic, if you wish. And truth is, Russia is not preparing any kind of meeting, and Russians themselves admitted that the only thing we have is just technical contacts which existed always between militaries, for example, and some very low-level communications channels on the diplomatic front, but that's about it. Nobody required, as Mr. Peskov stated, you can see yourself. And this is the quotation, this is verbatim. And I don't know how else to express it, that basically everything what is happening is all about this entourage of Trump is showing how important he is, while in reality, of course, first, which is absolutely correct, until he is the not president-elect but president de facto and de jure, he cannot do anything about some kind of the foreign policy decisions and any kind of arrangements. He might talk, to Russians, but that's about it. He cannot represent United States as, for now, as the bearer, so to speak, of the foreign policy decisions. And if Mr. Peskov is not enough, here comes those real heavyweights, which suddenly begin to explain why Glenn Diesen's tweet is kind of, describing situation which is too late, let's put it this way. Here we have none other than Mr. Patrushev. And Mr. Patrushev is a big honcho. Look what Mr. Patrushev says. He talks about yesterday, he top Putin aide. Yeah, he is the closest friend and closest circle of Vladimir Putin, and of course he used to be the deputy chair of the secretary rather of the Russia Security Council, the only one which makes proper decisions in terms of the pretty much all aspects of life of Russia under the sanctions and under the conditions of the special military operation. And he is, without any kind of maneuvering, just says it like it is. Moscow sees no point in negotiating over the conflict with any Western nation except for the US. And let me put it this way, if you go back to my blog, and if you also read my books, I've been ad nauseam on that since, 8 years, maybe 8.5, when I was stating that Europe doesn't matter. The only real powers which define the whole situation in Europe are Russia and United States. United States primarily by suppressing and demolishing the economies of its so-called allies. But he emphasized, as you can see yourself, Patrushev, that Moscow's goals in its military operation against Kiev remain unchanged. And he talks about, obviously, that the sovereignty over formerly Ukrainian territories, including Kherson, Zaporozhye regions, Donetsk and Lugansk republics, and Crimea are Russia, period. There's no even negotiation about this. Then, of course, Patrushev continues and he says, and this is exactly what I'm talking about all the time. Here I am very satisfied with the figure of this scale and of this influence on Russian politics, which is immense. Nikolai Patrushev says this. That's what I've been repeating like, it just ad nauseam for many years. There is nothing to discuss with London or Brussels. The EU leadership, for example, has long lost right to speak on behalf of many of its members, such as Hungary, Slovakia, Austria, Romania, and several other European countries that are interested in stability in Europe and maintain a balanced position towards Russia. He is absolutely correct here, and especially what can you discuss with London or Brussels? They are minuscule industrial, first London and Great Britain in general, economically it's dwarfed by Russia. Militarily it's not even funny to compare because London essentially doesn't command real military force. It's a ragtag, combination of who knows who those people are. So they're definitely not military professionals when you look attentively at what they speak about publicly. And that's what Patrushev says. But if Nikolai Patrushev wasn't enough, we have now the pressy by none other than Sergei Viktorovich Lavrov. And this is, cannot get any higher than that. This is the legend of the world diplomacy. And he's talking about delusional US, humiliated EU, terrorist Ukraine. Key messages from Lavrov press conference, which he gave in Moscow yesterday. The West's refusal to accept its diminishing role is driving global instability, which is absolutely correct. Attempts by the West to suppress competition and protect its privileged position at any cost are the main drivers in international tensions today. Absolutely correct. Mr. Lavrov never comes out with any kind of BS. He is a straight shooter, and that is why he is afraid. Not he is afraid. He is being feared by well, masses of the so-called diplomats from the United States, who are not really diplomats. They are basically some kind of brainwashed ideologues who pretend that they understand anything about international relations. And so when we have what Mr. Lavrov has to say, look at this. He reiterates the points which actually not only him, but all Russian diplomats, all Russian big-time political leaders, ranging from Mr. Putin, while Mr. Putin is too busy to report on that, but Mr. Medvedev, Mr. Patrushev, Mr. Lavrov. No Germany and Ukraine negotiations. Lavrov was asked what part of European Union and countries like Germany could play in future Ukraine peace talks. Diplomat responded that with all due respect to the history of German people, he believes that they have already made their contribution through the Chancellor Merkel's office and administration. He is being, of course, sarcastic in the extreme, considering the history of, when he talks about the history of German people and what they did to Europe and especially to Russian people. And of course, when he talks about Chancellor Merkel, colorless, I mean, epitome of the mediocrity, you know, what petty German politician who lied together with Mr. Holland and together with all other people from Europe trying to push on those Minsk I, Minsk II agreements, which have been created and signed just merely to buy time for Ukraine to get armed and prepare for what they did now. And so it is just absolutely ridiculous that the people in the United States still are being brainwashed by all those mainstream media and all those so-called American specialists in geopolitics that there is some kind of negotiations. There are none. Read my lips. There are none. There are, as I already stated many times, there are technical contacts on the level of the militaries and on the level of some diplomats on the middle level at best. And so when we talk about some kind of arrangements for the meeting, well, yeah, sure, Trump has to call Putin because Trump is the guy who has a weak hand. And so Lavrov added that even in the recent private conversations with Putin, Germany's current Chancellor Olaf Scholz has not said anything that he hasn't publicly said every other day. Exactly. They call Putin, or try to call him, and try to actually somehow present themselves as people who play any kind of role. It's all for PR. It's all to sell their constituencies, who continue to elect those people, that they matter and that they try to present unified front. There is no unified front in Europe. And as I already stated, all Europe, Western Europe, such as France, United Kingdom, Germany, Netherlands, what have you, they have no place at any what we'll call negotiation table. But our good friend, my good friend, large, and if you read attentively what he wrote today in one of the discussion boards in my blog, he correctly states that, and he describes what I'm describing, it's dialogue for now. There is no negotiations. As I already stated, to negotiate something, you need to come up to the table with something which is, you know, has some value to the your opponent or counterpart on negotiations. What can possibly United States bring to the table? Nothing. It's absolutely, that's the, you know, militarily United States is, well, for all intents and purposes, is a paper tiger. Now people well, people from my discussion boards yesterday went and said, oh, look at this, the guy wrote correct thing, and yeah, it is correct thing, and but I've been writing about for more than 10 years, or actually more closer to the 20 years, that actually the United States is not what it is. It tries to pretend or present itself militarily. It's not there. It never was. Even Colonel McGregor correctly states that we were grossly exaggerating our military capabilities, which, was one of the foundation of the main pillar, in fact, of the United States dominance in terms of financial institutions. And there, as I don't remember, it was Valery Giscard d'Estaing who said, probably that, I think, who said that exorbitant privilege by the United States having its currency as the reserve currency, global reserve currency. This time is ending. Actually, it already ended. It's just that, as any large systems, the process is very inertial and it takes time. But yeah, the main pillar on which the whole thing was arrested was, of course, this mythology that United States somehow can go out and project power. Yeah, it can project power against Iraq. It cannot project power against China, let alone Russia, and not to be defeated militarily. And this is what United States doesn't like to do. That doesn't mean that obviously Trump will not call Putin and then they will discuss something which Trump will say, oh, Vlad, let me, give you Ukraine and whatever Europe and you give up, China. Russia doesn't operate on those premises. And this is the thing which evidently they still cannot grasp in Washington. Although, again, as I already stated, Trump's peacemaking, so to speak. Intentions are primarily on concentrating or shifting whatever the resources United States has left towards China, fighting China. It is too late, make no mistake, but still they want to go and do this, anti-China, so to speak, route. And Mr. Xi, he has to be very grateful, and I know he is, that Russia took the brunt on itself of, facing down, facing off and then facing down the combined West, mainly NATO. And that is one of the major factors which drives essentially Trump's ideas about the new world order, if you wish, because it is a new world order. It's just totally different new world order as envisioned from what was envisioned by the United States and globalists. But then again, they are not literate people. They are not very well endowed, so to speak, intellectually. And that is why they screwed it up big time. And so that's what is so important about this noise, about this soap opera with the negotiations, while in reality it's going to be dialogue. It is a dialogue. You say, I say, yeah, we discuss something, but we do not negotiate because there are some things which Russia repeats non-stop since 2022. Realities on the ground. Realities on the ground are those things which dictate the outcome and they basically shape the framework. And this is where it all comes down to. Can United States, for all intents and purposes, comes to Russians and says, oh, you know what, how about we say no nuclear weapons, let's, duke it out, let's settle it, conventionally in Europe. Russians say, okay. Will the United States be able to settle anything? No. The US Army and the NATO armies will be destroyed. And that is why when you look intensively at those clowns from, whatever they call the firepower rankings and all that, they have no clue. We live in the world which is dying out. We live in the world where there's no expertise in any field related to the global balance of power. That is to say, applied geopolitics. And when you look at these rankings, really, this is one of those things like, how about you really present, some kind of the winning record? United States doesn't have one, and it never had. And the last time United States faced off with any determined and more or less competent enemy was, of course, in Korea. And it took the person of the scale of Eisenhower to basically, stop this unnecessary bloodshed and settle it in such a way that, at least United States haven't been driven out of it as it was in Afghanistan or in Vietnam. And for that matter, in Iraq. And when you look at those rankings, it's just like, you know what, guys? I never pretended that I can do the, open heart surgery or bypass surgery. I'm simply not qualified. I don't have the, wherewithal, so to speak. I don't have skills, knowledge to do that. I'm not even pretending. I don't go on the medical forums and start discussing and debating the surgeons and other type of the doctors there, because I'm amateur. I'm nobody in this field. But for some reason, it has been accepted for many decades now in the United States that some political scientist or lawyer can actually run the military and understand how it is all, integrated into the, grand strategy of the nation state. None of them can. We saw it. It's an utter total bankruptcy. And if you think that I'm talking about only West, you have to understand the same happens in Russia, where this media blob, most of it, 90% of it, is just utterly unprofessional people with agenda who wouldn't know, crap from shinola, let's put it this way. So what do you expect? How do you expect them to informing and explaining to people anything? Of course they can't. They don't have any ability to do so. And as a result, we live in this absolutely, distorted reality, which, not reality, distorted parallel universe, which has nothing to do with the reality on the ground. And reality on the ground is that Russian army, Russian armed forces, this is, I believe, some people say it's fifth, but it's definitely the fourth iteration of the armed forces have been demolished. And as Mr. Patrushev stated, this is the year where Ukraine will collapse. It will cease to exist as, it doesn't exist as the independent state anyhow. It's a totally virtual state run by the United States. But it will collapse with its political system, and we can only sit here and speculate on what it will be. I am not going to speculate because I understand that I do not have enough information. I do not have required data set to even base my predictions on this issue whatsoever. And but what we know, that Zelensky regime will not exist. And fact is, Russians would love the Americans or SAS, those, British guys, who guard him to, off him, and that's what most likely is going to happen. The guy still tries to obviously launder money and get, steal as much as he can, but it's too late. And it's too late to negotiate any kind and use any kind of terms like indivisible security, because the balance of power shifted. Things will look differently, and it's not going to be just indivisible security. It is the fact that, as I already stated, Russians reject any kind of the participation of the old West. Russians have to talk to the United States. But Western Europe, forget about it. They are nobodies, and they shouldn't be present in any capacity in or around any kind of the dialogue between Russians and Americans, albeit Mr. Rybkov, he went out on record yesterday and he completely stated that, you cannot trust any word from Americans. They lie, they cheat, they steal. He didn't say that, but he said that they just lie. You cannot trust them in any way. And he stated that the only thing which is left is to see the actions, not all those words. And he is absolutely correct. And I have nothing to add here. And this is what is this all about. About this alleged meeting between Trump and, you remember how he went from to stopping the war in 24 hours now to 100 days by Mr. Kellogg, and now to something like more like a half a year or something like that. So, what can I say? Let him try. Russians never changed their position. Well, they changed it. They improved it so much that at this stage, United States comes to the table with the weak, if not the empty hand, and will try to save its face. The question now if Russians will want to allow United States to save its face. And that's what I wanted to tell you today about this whole ordeal. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And this will be it for today. And I'll talk to you later, guys, probably on Friday. So have the nice rest of the week. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.